You were once a man who had it all. A complete family, a child who wrapped their arms around your neck to sleep every night. A wife who once looked at you like you were her whole world. But then, through just a few court hearings, a few signatures, a few extended silences, everything disappeared. The divorce papers didn't just strip away the title of husband. They also took your right to be a father, took away your presence in the life of the child you once carried in your arms. That feeling, no one talks about it. There are no support groups for men who were left by their wives. No one asks if you're okay. They just say, a man shouldn't be weak. So you go silent. You toughen up. And slowly, you fade into the dark. This video isn't for those who are okay. It's for the ones who were kicked out of the very home they built. The ones who don't dare to complain for fear of being judged. The ones sitting alone in an old room with a pain no one else can see. If you've been through that, keep watching, because I'm not here to comfort you. I'm here to speak the truth, and only the truth can make you stand again. What you're about to hear next could change the way you see your entire life. Hit subscribe, like, and stay with me, because the final minutes will be the most important. You once thought marriage was a safe place, a sacred ground, where no matter how stormy it got out there, just coming home meant peace. But then, one day, that door no longer opened. The woman who once held your hand at the altar now sat across from you in court, her eyes cold like a stranger's. The one who used to giggle at your silly jokes now frowned at every word, accused you, fought for custody, demanded to divide every inch of land, every drop of hard-earned savings. The deepest pain isn't splitting the house or the car. It's the feeling of being replaced, like you're some outdated item thrown out, like all those years of building meant nothing, like your very presence had become a burden, something she just wanted to escape from. In Stoicism, this pain is called identifying yourself with what does not belong to you. You thought your wife was yours, your marriage was yours, your children were yours. But no, those things are outside your control. And when you placed your self-worth into them, you gave others the power to dictate your emotions. A Stoic man doesn't live like that. He doesn't build his identity on someone else's love or the legal commitment of marriage. He builds it from within, through dignity, through principles, through unshakable composure in the face of loss. I know, it's easy to say, but you know that feeling, don't you? That moment when you walk out of court, divorce papers in hand, and it feels like the whole world collapsed. That moment when you stand alone in the same house, her clothes are gone, but her scent still lingers on the pillow. No one teaches you what to do with that emptiness. No one shows you how to keep living when what once gave your life meaning no longer exists. But if you're still here, still listening to these words, it means you can begin again. And in the next part, we'll talk about something even more brutal than divorce. When you lose the right to be a father, when you lose the connection with the very child made of your own flesh and blood. There is no pain more silent and persistent than being a father, but no longer being allowed to be one. You once held your child in your arms. That first time they grabbed your finger, the grip was tiny, fragile, but it clenched straight into your heart. You once thought, I'll protect them for life. And now you're not even allowed to see them. No birthdays, no graduations, not even regular calls. Every line of communication is cut off, as if you were a stranger, maybe even worse than a stranger. People say time heals all wounds, but they don't understand. This isn't a wound. This is a hole, a void that opens up every morning when you wake up and realize once again there's no message from your child. A void that stretches when you walk past the old park, where you once pushed a stroller, once taught them to ride a bike, once heard them call daddy with a voice still learning the words. This is one of the most dangerous traps a man can fall into, the illusion that because he's a father, the child belongs to him. Stoicism rips that illusion apart. Epictetus made it clear, your child is not yours. They are a gift on loan from fate, and may be taken back at any time. But you didn't believe it. You loved your child so deeply that you confused love with ownership. And when someone else, the court, your ex-wife's circumstance, took that right away, it felt like they tore out your soul. You're angry, you're bitter. But angry at who? Blaming who? Blame the child for not understanding you? Blame the mother for turning them against you? Blame life for being unfair? Or maybe it's time to look inward and accept a truth that's hard to swallow. True love doesn't need power, doesn't need recognition, doesn't need to keep. It only needs to exist unconditionally. Stoicism teaches this. Your role is to plant seeds. Whether the seed grows or not is not in your hands. But if that seed is planted with consistency, with a character unshaken by judgment or resentment, then one day your child will return. And when they do, the question won't be who was right, who was wrong. The question will be, will you still have the strength to stand there, open your arms, and love without bitterness? There are mornings you wake up, stare at the ceiling, and a question hangs in the air. What am I even living for? No one sees that crisis. You still go to work, still wear your iron shirt, still attend meetings, still reply to messages on time, but inside, it's empty. Like life is running on autopilot, and you're just a passenger locked inside your own body. There used to be reasons to try, for your career, for your family, for your youthful dreams. But now, all of that feels like it's just slipped by, fragmented, stripped of meaning. This is what Marcus Aurelius once faced, and he named it clearly in Stoic thought. Losing logos, the reason that guides life, the force that separates man from beast. When you no longer know what's truly worth living for, worth acting for, life becomes a chain of instinctive reactions, chasing deadlines, replying to texts, scrambling for money, without knowing why. You're not lazy, not lacking effort. In fact, you may be working harder than ever. But that lost feeling, it isn't because you're doing nothing. It's because everything you're doing no longer connects to the source. The ideal that once made your heart pound, your eyes light up. Maybe it was a dream in your youth. Maybe it was the desire to build something meaningful. Maybe it was simply to live a life that matters. Logos hasn't vanished. It's just been buried under the noise of society, of expectations, of the label grown man. Stoicism teaches us, if you want to get out, don't run. Sit still. Look straight. Write down, not what you're doing, but why you're doing it. Dig to the root. If tomorrow was your last day, would you regret anything? When you start asking that, it means logos is returning. And once reason is back, you don't need anyone to guide you. Your steps will know where to go. But then you'll realize, no matter how strong your reason is, there's still another enemy, quietly gnawing at you from within. The feeling of being left behind in a world changing far too fast. Do you remember that feeling? When the whole room is talking about AI, tech, the latest online trends, and you're just sitting there, silent. Not because you don't understand, but because you no longer care, and you're not even sure if you should care. Every time you open social media, you feel lost. People are younger, speaking in emojis, memes, slang, and no matter how hard you try, you still feel like you belong to another time. No one says it out loud, but this society runs on an unspoken rule. Those who can't keep up get silently discarded. No one kicks you out of the game, yet you still feel like you've been pushed to the margins. From work to conversations, even to how your own children look at you. You're no longer the center. You're just the outsider, a shadow. In Stoicism, this pain is called clinging to the image, losing the essence. You were once a top earner, once the provider, once the pillar. But those were roles, not your essence. And when those roles disappear, you collapse because you've tied your identity to the performance. The Stoic does not define himself by job, age, or social role. He builds identity from within, by character, by virtue, by right action. If you were once brave, then you're still brave, even if no one names it anymore. If you once lived with integrity, that integrity still lives, even if no one pats you on the back for it. The world may change, but the foundational values do not. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Even if the whole empire falls, I can still keep myself, and that is the only thing we ever truly control." And then, when you are no longer recognized, no longer needed, the only thing left is this: can you endure being alone? Let's continue that part, as we now enter the true darkness, silence, solitude, and the feeling that no one needs you anymore. This isn't just a video. This is the reminder you needed today. Hit subscribe and like if you want someone in your corner, pushing you to live by your real values. The loneliness of a middle-aged man is unlike any other loneliness, not because there's no one around, but because there's no one you can truly speak your heart to. Old friends are now busy surviving or broken by the same burdens you're carrying. Say it to coworkers and you fear being judged. Say it to family and you fear worrying them. Say it to your partner and you fear losing face. And as for saying it to your ex-wife, there's no one left there to listen. So you choose silence. Choose to laugh it off. Choose to work like a machine just to stop thinking. But at night, when all the lights go out, the phone falls silent, and the house goes still, everything cracks open. You feel like the whole world has forgotten you, like if you vanished tomorrow, no one would even notice. Stoicism looks straight at this pain and names it overreacting to the nature of fate. Epictetus said, "Loneliness doesn't destroy us. It's the way we respond to it that brings us down." Life has always moved this way. There are sunny seasons and rainy ones, loud days and quiet nights. Some people enter your life and then leave. Not because you failed, not because you were wrong, but because that's the nature of things. But we fight what cannot be changed. We resent it, resist it, scream in silence, like we've been abandoned. When the truth is, no one was ever responsible for saving us from loneliness, except ourselves. A Stoic does not expect others to listen to him. He learns to listen to himself. He speaks with his reason, with his essence, with what's right. And he learns to see loneliness not as a punishment, but as space. Space to reflect, to rebuild, to train the self. The more you run from loneliness, the more it chases you. But if you sit down, face it, and ask, "What are you trying to teach me?" then it becomes the harshest but most honest teacher you'll ever have. And sometimes it is only from the depths of that solitude that you finally see one truth clearly: how deeply you had lost yourself in a relationship that was never right for you. And that is when we move to the next part. When love becomes a trap, you don't dare to escape. You used to think love was something between two people, but at some point in your life you suddenly realized the love you were living felt more like a form of subtle control. Every word you said was judged. Every action you took was measured. If you did the right thing, it was simply what you were supposed to do. If you did something wrong, it became proof that you don't love her. You started living in fear. Fear of upsetting her, fear of not being good enough, fear of being left. And gradually, you stopped being yourself. You thought you were in love, but in reality, you were turning yourself into a version that could be accepted just to maintain a relationship that, deep down, you no longer recognized as love or as a trap. Stoicism confronts this truth directly and names it willingly becoming a slave to someone else's emotions. Epictetus said, "When you tie your happiness to someone else's actions, you've handed them the keys to your freedom. And when they change, you fall apart. When they grow cold, you panic. When they go silent, you lose your mind." Why? Because you've tied your entire sense of worth to being loved, being validated, being chosen. A Stoic does not love that way. They love from a place of freedom. They give because they choose to, not because they expect something in return. They don't let love become an excuse to abandon their principles. And most of all, they do not become slaves to the emotional ups and downs of others. If you have to force yourself into the role of the ideal man just to keep love, then that's not love, it's a contract. If you're afraid to speak your truth because you fear losing the other person, then you've already lost yourself. And when you've lost yourself, what comes next is inevitable. Life starts to collapse. Not from a major blow, but from all the small financial cracks you once ignored. That's what we'll get to in the next part, when money becomes the lingering ache every time you open your wallet. There's a very real, very male feeling when you open your wallet and see only a few small bills left. Then your ex-wife's face flashes in your mind, along with the sound of voices asking for tuition, car insurance, water bills, electricity bills. All of it piles up like a dull ache in your chest, not sharp enough to knock you down, but persistent enough to keep you awake every night. And the next morning, you still have to get up, shave, put on a dress shirt, pretending like everything's fine. People talk about success like it's a destination, but very few talk about the slow fall, when your career stops rising, when everything that once made you proud now feels like a fading memory. You used to think, I'll never have to worry about money. Then one day the job gets cut, the project falls apart, clients don't pay. Everything collapses like dominoes. In Stoicism, this pain is called the illusion of controlling outcomes in a chaotic world. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You may act rightly, but the result never belongs to you." But we tend to do the opposite. We throw ourselves at life like moths to a flame, thinking that as long as we work hard, as long as we live right, everything will go according to plan. And when it doesn't, we believe we failed, that we weren't good enough, that we lost. The Stoic separates action from outcome. He holds responsibility only for the action, not attachment to the result. He measures his worth by his principles, not by his bank balance. He knows money is a tool, not a destination. A career is a means, not an identity. If you have lived with integrity, worked honestly, never stepped on anyone to get ahead, then even if you're temporarily broke, you are still a successful man. Successful in the way a Stoic defines it, unshaken by chaos. And only when we let go of the illusion of controlling everything do we finally feel light. Only then can we start to face a more painful truth. For years, we've lived as if we were immortal. That is what will be stripped bare in the next part, when time comes to collect its debt. There are days when you look in the mirror and no longer recognize yourself. Dark circles under your eyes, gray hair. The wrinkles at the corners of your mouth are no longer from laughing, but from clenching too hard for too long. A single cough makes you think, strange, am I really this old already? No one teaches men how to age. No one tells you that one day you won't be able to run 5 kilometers like before. One day you'll need blood pressure medication. One day you'll realize your parents have grown weak, your friends are starting to fade, your children are growing up, and no longer need you the way they used to. You used to postpone everything, learning something new, writing a book, traveling, saying sorry, even loving yourself. There was always a reason. It's not the right time. But what no one tells you is that there will never be a perfect time. Time doesn't wait until you're done to knock on your door. Stoicism calls this the illusion of immortality. One of the root mistakes that causes people to live halfway is the belief that they still have time. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself every morning, today might be the last day. Not to panic, but to focus. To know what must be done, what can be let go, what must be said, who should be forgiven, what action must not be delayed. The Stoic does not fear death, they only fear a wasted life. A life where you don't even realize you're alive. A life where you never truly love anyone. A life where you never once gave your all for what's right. If you've ever said, I'll change, just not now, then this is the moment. No one is guaranteed tomorrow. That's why living rightly isn't something you save for later. It's something you must do, right now. Because if you don't, the final part will come, when everything is gone and there's nothing left to control. And the question then won't be what happened, but how will you respond to what can no longer be changed? That is the final lesson of the Stoic. Not everyone has the patience to watch until the end, but those who do are always the ones who go further than the rest. If you're one of them, subscribe and like, we're on the same team. There are things that happen so suddenly you can't even react. Losing your job after a single email, being left behind by someone you love after a single message, an illness arriving without warning. These things hit like giant waves, and you're left standing alone on the shore, empty-handed, eyes wide open, heartbroken. The worst part is, you did everything right. You were kind, you tried, you weren't lazy, irresponsible, or careless. Yet everything still collapsed. As if justice doesn't exist. As if life is a gamble, and you were the one who bet everything, only to walk away with nothing. In Stoicism, this is the core principle, and also the hardest one to learn. the dichotomy of control. Clearly distinguish what is within your control and what is not. Epictetus begins his entire philosophy with this question, because all suffering, in fact, begins from the failure to separate these two things. We assume that if we are kind, others will be kind. If we try hard, results will come. If we love sincerely, people will not leave. But no, what lies within our control are only thoughts, actions, choices, and our way of living. Everything else, from the weather to other people's feelings, from accidents to success or failure, lies beyond our influence. And if we try to control what cannot be controlled, then disappointment, anger, and despair are inevitable. The Stoic is not emotionally numb. They feel pain, they feel loss, but they do not resist what cannot be changed. They respond with dignity. They stand back up, brush off the dust, and continue to act by principle, even when circumstances turn their back. The question is no longer, why is this happening to me, but what should I do now with what has happened? And sometimes, the thing that is most right, most courageous, most profound is not to resist, but to let go. Not letting go because you lost, but letting go because you are grown enough to understand not everything lost is worth holding on to. Not everyone who leaves is worth chasing. We were taught that we must push through, that we must hold on, that we must fight to the end, that giving up is failure, that letting go is weakness, that a real man is someone who never accepts defeat. But no one told us there are things that, the more we hold on to them, the more they rot us from the inside. A toxic relationship, a career that's already clinically dead, a dream that no longer fits the person we've become, a resentment that has eaten away at our heart for years, a past we've kept ourselves imprisoned in for far too long. Stoicism doesn't teach us to let go in order to back down. It teaches us to let go at the right moment in order to move forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it no longer aligns with nature, then it's time to let it go." Whatever no longer serves our values, clinging to it only drags us further from who we really are. Letting go is not running away. Letting go is a deliberate choice. It's the admission, I cannot control this, but I can control how I respond. And so I choose peace. I choose not to spend another drop of energy wrestling with something that's long since drifted out of reach. A Stoic doesn't fear losing. They fear losing themselves in the act of holding on to what no longer belongs. And they know, sometimes having the courage to let go is the clearest sign of true strength. You've held on tightly to many things because you were afraid to lose. But if today you try loosening your grip, you might realize the things worth keeping will never leave. And what disappears was only an illusion you've clung to for too long. And the moment you let go, you'll notice something shift. Your mind begins to feel lighter. A new space opens up. A new life, no longer bound to the old one. And that is where the new journey begins. With a man who no longer fears loss, no longer fears being alone, no longer fears being left behind. Because he knows, he himself is the only thing that remains and the only thing that has ever been whole. Most men are taught that life is about winning, about reaching goals, about having a house, a car, a title, and admirers. Success must be measured by outcome, and if you don't have the results, it means you're not good enough, not worthy enough, not man enough. But do you see the paradox? There are times when you do everything right, honestly, ethically, wholeheartedly, and still lose. Still don't get picked, still get played, still get nowhere. And then there are those who lie, scheme, and manipulate, yet still win, still rise, still live in luxury. So you start to question it all. Why live with integrity? Are principles really worth holding on to? Am I being left behind in a game where the rules were rigged from the start? Stoicism points this out clearly. It's because you've set your goal on what lies outside your control. Your goal is to win, to be loved, to be recognized, but all those things don't actually belong to you. Epictetus calls this a necessary reversal. Goal inversion. Don't set your goal on what's uncontrollable. Set your goal on your internal actions. To live rightly, to do what's right, to stand with integrity. When you shift your focus from I want to win to I want to live true to my values, the outside world can no longer define you. You might lose, but you are not a failure. You might let go, but you never lose yourself. And something strange will begin to happen. When you no longer crave recognition, you become calm. When you no longer fear defeat, you become strong. When you no longer obsess over outcomes, you start to live fully in every action. A Stoic does not live to win. He lives to live rightly. And if he lives rightly, even if the whole world turns against him, he still stands tall because he has conquered himself. And that is when finally he feels peace. But that peace cannot survive if we keep chasing a life that lies outside our reach. What must we do to preserve that calm in the middle of the storm? We need one thing: to know what is enough. The tragedy of human nature is this: no matter how much we have, we never feel it's enough. You have a house, then you want a bigger one. You have a beautiful wife, yet someone else's seems more attractive. You have a stable job, but dream of your own company. You have your health, yet complain time moves too slowly. You have peace, but find it boring. It's as if there's always an invisible comparison chart in your head between what you have and what you imagine you need. And every time you look at it, you feel you lack something. Every time you look around, you feel others are ahead. And from that imagined lack comes a wave of anxiety. A series of foolish decisions are made, and the happiness you already had gets crushed by your own hand. Marcus Aurelius warned about this 2,000 years ago. Do not let your desire for what you don't have make you despise what you do. That's the disease of our era, and the constant pain of those who don't know when to stop. Stoicism calls this the disease of blind ambition, the thing that makes us think we're moving forward when in fact we're being pulled down by an endless hunger. Knowing what is enough is not complacency. Knowing what is enough is a form of awakening. It's when you look around and realize you already have so many things that were once dreams 5 years ago. It's when you drink a cup of tea and feel complete, eat a simple meal and feel grateful, live an ordinary day and feel how precious it is. The Stoic doesn't abandon ambition, but they don't let it devour the present. They know that if you can't enjoy life right now, then no matter how much success you achieve later, it will only be an empty shell. And maybe that sense of inner sufficiency is the one thing that could finally save you from the endless spiral of life. But to truly feel gratitude for the present, we must have an awakened heart. A heart that understands no one owes us anything, not even life itself. There is a kind of strength that no gym can build. It's not in your biceps, not in the money you earn, not in how you respond to others. It lies in how you see life after everything you've lost, after your wife leaves, after you lose custody of your child, after your company collapses, after your friends grow distant and loneliness fills the gap. In that moment, can you still feel gratitude? Stoicism sees gratitude as the highest expression of a powerful mind. Not the kind of shallow, trendy gratitude like, write down 3 things that made you happy today. No, gratitude in Stoicism is quiet, deep, and reflected in how you live, without complaint, without demands, without believing you're more deserving than anyone else. Marcus Aurelius called it Eunoia, a benevolent mind. Not because it's naive, but because it has seen enough pain, enough loss, enough darkness, to understand that every morning you wake up and breathe is a gift. Every unbroken conversation is a miracle, and every opportunity to do what is right is a privilege. A Stoic doesn't wait for things to go smoothly before feeling thankful. They're thankful even in hardship, because they know no experience is meaningless. Not pain, not betrayal, not humiliating failure. All of it is a teacher. All of it is a chance to forge character. All of it is raw material to build a human being as steady as stone. You may have lost much, but if you've held on to your gratitude, it means you've never lost yourself. And if you still have yourself, then you still have everything. From that point, you can finally enter the brightest realm of Stoicism. Freedom, but not the kind of freedom that means doing whatever you want. True freedom is knowing what belongs to you and what doesn't. This is the breaking point for many men who were once strong. They don't collapse from a single blow. They fall because they refuse to accept that some things are simply not within their control. They want to save a rotting marriage. They want to win back a distant child. They want to reverse a declining career. They want to control another person's emotions. They want to force life to match what they believe should have happened. And that desire for control becomes the biggest chain around their neck. It leads to anger, sleepless nights, jealousy, rage, depression. And then blaming life, blaming others, blaming fate, but never turning to look at themselves. Stoicism lays down an extremely clear, extremely simple principle, one that most people ignore. There are two kinds of events, those we can control and those we cannot. What's in our hands? Our thoughts, our words, our actions, our own reactions. What lies outside? The actions of others, the feelings of others, the outcome of our efforts, praise or blame, fame or obscurity, life or death. The tragedy is that we neglect what's in our hands and exhaust ourselves trying to control what never was. Epictetus said, "When we understand this boundary, all suffering disappears." Marcus said, "I cannot change the world, but I can change myself." Seneca said, "No disaster is powerful enough to defeat a mind that's been trained." When you sit down and write on paper, what can I control and what can't I? You are beginning a revolution within. A revolution that needs no blood, only the courage to face truth. Because it's in that admission, freedom begins. And from that freedom, peace can finally take root. No more drifting in the current of life, no more panic from being swept away. You'll be standing in the eye of the storm, and you'll say, "I choose this response, because this is what I still have the power to choose." Most people think freedom means doing whatever you want, taking time off whenever you feel like it, saying whatever you want, living however you choose. But there's a kind of freedom that runs deeper, stronger, and lasts longer. It's the one no one can take away from you. Inner freedom. You're only truly free when no one else can control your emotions. When they insult you, you don't have to get angry. When they abandon you, you don't have to fall apart. When life bangs on your door, you don't have to collapse. All external actions may be limited. People can imprison you, fire you, betray you, but if your mind remains intact, then no one can take your freedom. This is the core of Stoicism. Epictetus, born a slave, beaten and abused, still said, "They can shackle my leg, but my will they can never touch." True freedom isn't control over circumstances, it's control over yourself. And that's something anyone can train for. No matter where they are in life, how much money they have, what title they hold, or how long they've been unemployed. The problem is, most of us don't live as free men. We live like puppets on strings. One insult keeps you awake at night. One action from your ex ruins your entire day. One like, or lack of it, sends your emotions into a tailspin. If that's the case, then even if you live in a $1 million home, drive a luxury car, and dine in 5-star restaurants, you are still not free. A Stoic doesn't live by reflex, he lives by choice. He doesn't let emotion drive his behavior. He pauses before reacting. He asks, is this within my control? If it isn't, he lets go. If it is, he chooses to act by principle, not by impulse. When you can do that, it means you are mastering yourself. And when you've mastered yourself, circumstances no longer matter. Because no matter how life changes, you remain steady at the center of the storm. And from that place, you can make the most important decision of your life. What is your ultimate goal? Recognition from others, or unshakable strength within. That leads to the next part, where we learn how to set the right goal, so we're never again disappointed by a world that won't bend to our will. You once set dozens of goals: to get promoted, to buy a house before turning 40, to earn your child's respect, to make your ex-wife realize she was wrong. And each of those goals came with a trap, the outcome. When you achieved them, you felt happy for a while, but then came the emptiness. When you didn't, you felt disappointed, angry, doubtful of yourself. Then you set new goals and repeated the same cycle for years. Until one day, you stopped setting goals altogether because you were too exhausted from the cycle of expectation and disappointment. Stoicism teaches us the exact opposite. Set your goal on the effort, on the action, on living in alignment with your principles. because the outcome is always beyond your control. You can love someone wholeheartedly, but you can't force them to love you back. You can raise your child with care, but you can't decide whether they'll understand you. You can work hard, but you can't control who gets promoted. Epictetus said, "Your only goal is to respond correctly." That means, choose the action you can be proud of, even if the worst possible result happens. Choose a way of living you won't be ashamed of when you look back, even if no one gives you credit. Do the right thing, simply because it's right. No need for applause, no need for recognition, no need to be loved in return. When you live this way, you can no longer be wounded by failure. Because to you, failure no longer exists. You only have two states. One is living rightly, the other is learning the lesson to live more rightly. Everything else is just noise. A Stoic doesn't cling to the destination. They focus on the path. Winning isn't necessary. What matters is not betraying yourself. And if you live this way every day, then even if you're nobody in the eyes of the world, you're still a hero in your own eyes. And that's the highest value. Because from that place, something truly precious emerges, a sense of fullness in the present, something that many people, despite having everything, still cannot attain. Thank you for being here. If you found this video helpful, subscribe, turn on notifications, and like this video. Don't forget to leave a comment so we can spread positivity together.